Production by
Michael Lofton.
You're watching Reason and Theology Live, a show dedicated to charitable discussion, debates, interviews, commentary, and analysis. The show concentrates on theological topics, historical matters, and philosophical problems with content ranging from introductory material to in-depth examinations. And now, your host, Michael Lofton.
Welcome to Reason and Theology, everyone. Your host, Michael, on a Wednesday evening. I have about 40 minutes to do a quick stream because we have Jimmy Akin coming back on, and he's going to be on at 6 p.m. Central, so in about 40 minutes. So not a whole lot of time, but I wanted to sneak this one in since I came across it this morning. Y'all, what is going on? What's going on? I expect the liberals in the church to lose their minds. I expect that. They're liberals. I mean, what else is new? But I'm getting the feeling that us traditional Catholics, we're losing our minds as well. By the end of this video, you'll see why. But, I mean, it's getting concerning. Somebody says the audio is fuzzy. I don't know. Let me check, make sure that, I'm coming through on the right mic. And I don't know. Mic is picking up too much. Mic is kind of weird. Okay. Well, is it too loud? Is that what it is? I'll just let me know. Not sure why. Let me just try resetting this. 1 second. Is that any better? Testing 1, 2, 3. Y'all please let me know. Somebody says too much gain. I don't know. All the settings are exactly the same, like normal. Okay. So y'all are saying it's muted now. What about now? Does it sound any better? Okay. Good. So maybe just needed the good old-fashioned reboot. Anyways, what I'm wanting to get at, because we, like I said, don't have a whole lot of time here. We got Jimmy Akin coming on in 20 minutes, but I wanted to sneak this in because I saw it this morning. And believe it or not, this isn't even the only thing that I want to cover. I wish I had more time. I'll probably end up doing it tomorrow. But I wanted to address Father Chad Ripperger's comments on the Second Vatican Council. A lot of people have asked me to address that, so... But right now we're just going to have to limit ourselves to Archbishop Vigano, which when he first came out, I mean, it was pretty helpful to hear, somebody be frank and open about what's going on in the church as far as the crisis. But I don't know, as time progressed, it just kind of seems like he went off the rails or something. I don't know. I don't know how else to read this. All right, well, what I'm referring to, since some of y'all might not be familiar with it, it is an article published yesterday by LifeSite News. The title of it is Vigano on Vatican Health Conference with Fauci. Holy See is making itself the servant of the New World Order. That's the title of it. Again, released yesterday, 7:32. And, of course, this is precipitated by the nonsense that's going on right now with the Vatican. The Pontifical Council for Culture is having some kind of event, and they're bringing in a bunch of ridiculous people who have no business being there. All right? And somebody's mentioning gain issue. Please let me know if y'all are still hearing it. I thought it got better, but if it's still an issue, let me know. I'll just turn the fader down a little bit. So just maybe let me know in the chat. But yeah, they have this ridiculous event going on with individuals that they should not have there, like Deepak Chopra. And somebody saying it's still there. Okay. I got it turned down. Let me know if that helps any. But Deepak Chopra, I've been familiar with him for a very long time. New Age guy has no business being there. All right, no business. I don't know why we're entertaining these people, and there's others that are just as bad, if not worse. Right? Why are we entertaining these people? We should be evangelizing them. What's going on here? So I'm not condoning that event at all. I think it's ridiculous. It's shameful. This is yet another one of the examples where some of our shepherds are failing us. Now, how much of this goes back to Pope Francis, I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he's aware of it and endorses it. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. I mean, I don't know for a fact, but wouldn't surprise me. Okay, let me share my screen here so y'all can see what I'm reading. Some concerning stuff. And some are wondering, why am I talking about some of these reactionary traditionalists? Why am I, not addressing the fact that you have this Pontifical Council for Culture? Well, I think that the reactionary Catholics are already doing a good enough job talking about all the problems in the church today, as far as the liberalism going on. So what I'm going to do is try to balance some of their reactions out. That's my intention. All right. Well, y'all should be able to see the screen. One thing that caught my attention was this. The Holy See has deliberately renounced the supernatural mission of the church, and he's talking about, of course, by this event, making itself the servant of the New World Order in Masonic globalism. I mean, they're definitely not helping Christianity by hosting this event, and definitely are helping liberalism and secularism and all kinds of other things that they shouldn't be helping. Sure. I don't know if I'd put it this way, but okay. In an antichristic counter magisterium. Now that's counter magisterium. So a counter teaching authority. So this now sounds like something that's happening at an official level. And especially when we start talking about a counter magisterium. So now you have a teaching authority that's established by Christ, and then that teaching authority, which is in the bishops and the Pope, is also being headed, those same shepherds are also the head of a counter magisterium, which is kind of what I was asking yesterday with Dr. Marshall. Is that what he believes? Does he believe the Pope is head of a false church and a true church all at the same time? That's going to cause some serious problems in ecclesiology. Well, here it looks like Vigano is effectively saying, yes, that is the case. And I noticed that he calls him Bergoglio. I'm not sure if that's deliberate or if it's just, some other reason, but I don't know what that means. Does that mean he doesn't recognize him as a Pope? I don't know. I did think he was a little conspicuous, but hey, he might still recognize that he's the Pope. But here's the problem. Here's the real big issue. Not that that wasn't a small issue. It's definitely a rough one. But here it is. At La Salette, Our Lady warned us, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. Now, in a second, I'm going to address that. But watch what he says next. It will not be the Holy Church, indefectible by the promises of Christ, that will lose the faith. It will be the sect that occupies the see of most blessed Peter, and which today we see propagating the anti-gospel of the New World Order. So the Antichrist is going to occupy the see of the most blessed Peter? Am I misunderstanding? Am I misreading? Can I get some clarity here? Let's read it again. Our Lady at La Salette, Our Lady warned, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. It will not be the Holy Church and defectible by the promises of Christ that will lose the faith. It will be the sect that occupies the see of most blessed Peter, in which today we see propagating the anti-gospel of the New World Order. So the sect that occupies the most blessed Peter will be the seat of the Antichrist? So the Antichrist is going to reign in the seat of Peter, and yet the church is still going to be indefectible? Or is he saying the sect that currently occupies the see of Peter is basically the seat of the Antichrist? It's a little unclear, but no matter how this thing shakes down, I don't know how anybody could say this and still remain a Catholic. The ecclesiology here is absolutely horrific. It will be the sect that occupies the see of the most blessed Peter. Okay, well, that implies that the seat of the Antichrist is going to be a sect that occupies the see of Peter, but it won't be the actual true church, which is indefectible, which is what he's saying. Okay, but the Antichrist is actually going to be in the see of Peter? If that is the case, your ecclesiology is over. Your church is defectible. The papacy has failed. Let's press pause on that. Let's first talk about Our Lady of La Salette. I hear this thrown around all the time. First of all, this is something that happened in 1846, right? The event. It was written down in 1851 and was supposed to be sent to the Pope then for his review. 1851. In 1851, these words were not included in the original message. They were not there. Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. But you know what? Let's just pretend that they were for some reason. Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist. We could at least understand this to mean Rome as in the city of Rome, not necessarily the Pope or the see of Peter, right? The city could be the seat of the Antichrist. That doesn't mean the see of Peter will become the seat of the Antichrist. But that's often how we hear it, all right? That's problematic. So already we have a little bit of a spin that's being put on this dubious quote. But again, it wasn't there in 1851 when this was sent to the Pope. One of the seers did add this, presumably, it seems, later on in 1879. Okay? Which, again, there's a legitimate way to interpret that doesn't lead you into what Vigano says next. But I'm not even going to concede that this was approved by the Pope. It does seem in 1879, this edition, however, was received or given an imprimatur, which doesn't mean a whole lot, by a bishop, and it wasn't even the bishop of the seer. It was actually a bishop from France, I believe, which is odd because, as I understand it, the bishop said that they weren't supposed to write. She wasn't supposed to write anything else, but then she goes and does this. Now, if I've misunderstood and my facts are incorrect, please correct me there. Okay. I'm just saying based on what I've seen so far in my research on this. Moreover, and more importantly than just imprimatur of a bishop, it does seem to be the case in 1922 that the Vatican, let's say the Vatican, yeah, hold on one second. Let me get another one of these important calls. Let me let them know I'm live. It does seem that the AAS put this on the index of forbidden books. In fact, I'll pull it up on my screen. Let's go to it. 1923 is the version that it's in. AAS 15. I think it's 288, somewhere around there. Let's go to it together. It does seem this 1879 version that includes this edition is on the Index of Forbidden Books. Okay, so that's it's not a good look when you're quoting something that was added later and is on the Index of Forbidden Books. 288. There you go, right here. Boom. Condemned work, right there. Let me zoom in for you. Condemned work, 1923. Bam. Right here. It does say 1845 for the original apparition. It's actually 1846. I think they got that wrong. The event happened in 1846. I don't know why they put 1845, but right here, clearly, this was the updated version that she added in 1879. This is the title of it. And here it's on the index. Now, if somebody can maybe correct and say, oh, no, this was maybe a different copy of it or something. This isn't actually the one that was in 1879. Okay, great. Wonderful. But I think that this should be noted whenever we have these discussions. So what I'm going to say is this. The additional words, Rome will lose the faith and become the seat of the Antichrist, is questionable. Okay? It does seem to be condemned on the index. Okay? If I'm wrong, and that's very possible here, I could be wrong, please let me know. And at the end of the day, if you can somehow prove it's authentic, no sweat off my back, because that doesn't necessarily mean Rome, meaning the see of Peter. It could just be the city, Rome, right? We have to now read into it and say, oh, the see of Peter is going to lose the faith. And that's the way a lot of people tend to interpret this quote whenever it's thrown around. They interpret it meaning, oh, the papacy is going to lose the faith. Rome is not equivalent to the papacy. I'm sorry, y'all. It's simply not. So even if we could somehow prove it's authentic and there's a misunderstanding going on here with the index, there was something actually else that was condemned, maybe another version that was being circulated or something, even if you can do that, it's still not going to lead to that, what immediately follows. It will not be the Holy Church indefectible by the promises of Christ. That's so nice that Vigano recognizes the church is indefectible, but then he goes on to say something that would prove its defectibility. It's kind of like Luther, Yeah, well, Luther believed that the Pope was the Antichrist. And people could retort and say, well, wait, you believe the church is defectible? No, I believe it's indefectible. So, Luther can do the same thing that he's doing. The exact same thing. He can, and my question is, how is what Luther is saying any different than what Vigano's saying? That's my concern. Yeah, even a Lutheran can say, yeah, sure, of course the church is indefectible, but then they redefine what the church is and what defectibility is. And that's what he does. He says, yeah, of course I believe in the indefectibility and the promises of Christ. The church will never lose the faith, but then he completely shifts. What does he mean by the church? What does he mean by defectibility? Well, here is how the Catholic Church understands the church and defectibility. I've talked about this a little bit before. This is from the Relatio of Bishop Gasser at the First Vatican Council. And, of course, this is the way to interpret Pastor Aeternus, right, issued by the council. So it has interpretive authority. Before they voted on Pastor Aeternus, they read this Relatio from the bishop, and they voted. When they voted on accepting Pastor Aeternus, it was in this sense, as understood by the Relatio. Somebody said Elijah's favorite document. Right, yeah, Elijah, Eric, they're always talking about it, right? So nothing new here. You've probably heard it a million times. Here's what it says. This prerogative granted to St. Peter by the Lord Jesus Christ was supposed to pass to all Peter's successors. And in fact, let me just pull it up on the screen because you'll probably want to see it instead of just me reading it to y'all. All right. This prerogative, and you try to zoom in on that one. Yeah. There we go. This prerogative granted to St. Peter by the Lord Jesus Christ was supposed to pass to all Peter's successors because the chair of Peter is the what? Center of unity in the church. Quite an odd thing to call something that's going to be the see of the Antichrist or the seat of the Antichrist, something that could be hijacked by the Antichrist. All right, he says, but if the pontiff should fall into an error of faith, the church would dissolve. Did you hear that? I do believe a pope can privately err. I believe a pope could even privately utter a heresy. I believe a pope in his private person, acting maybe as a theologian, not as the pope, could even express a heresy publicly. You could even argue the case that some popes have taught error, and here by error in the sense I'm using it, it's a lower sense than heresy. Okay. Some have argued that, although those are rare cases. But here he's really talking about especially a heresy. The church would dissolve, deprived of the bond of unity. Why? Because the see of Peter is the center of unity. You should know this as a Catholic. I mean, otherwise, how are you going to respond to Eastern Orthodox? Why they say, why aren't you Eastern Orthodox? If your answer is something other than the papacy, you probably have not the best argument. It would be deprived of the bond of unity because the see of Peter is the center of unity. The Bishop of Meaux speaks very well on this point when he says, if the Roman see could fall and be no longer the see of truth, but of error and pestilence, which is what a whole lot of people think the Pope is today, Vigano included, then the Catholic Church herself would not have the bond of a society. It would be schismatic and scattered, which is in fact impossible. I would submit to you Vigano's ecclesiology, expressed here and elsewhere, goes against Vatican I's understanding of the chair of Peter, it being the center of unity, and being indefectible. Moreover, Van Noort, as I've mentioned before in his manuals, he mentions how the church, if the church is unfit to carry out its mission through some kind of substantial change, substantial corruption, then it's just failed in its mission. It's no longer indefectible. It is defectible. Well, what would one example of that be? Well, if the see of Peter could fall and no longer be the sea of truth and error and pestilence, then that would be one example that the church has substantially corrupted and is no longer carrying out its mission because the very center of unity is now a sea of pestilence. Your church is now defectible. I also want to read something to y'all from Pope Hormisdas, which I've mentioned on the show before. And there's many, many other quotes that could be provided, but this is important whenever engaging Eastern Orthodox, because the Eastern Orthodox are going to say that our see has defected from the faith. They'll say that with the papacy, they'll say that with the filioque, but they will say Rome has defected from the faith, which is substantially no different than what Vigano and others are asserting. Van Noort says, Pope Hormisdas, I should say, says, and this was also, by the way, something that a lot of the Eastern bishops had to sign off if they wanted to come back into communion with the Pope during a time of schism at that point. If they wanted to come back into communion with the Pope, here's what they had to sign. And many of the Eastern bishops did. For it is impossible that the words of our Lord Jesus Christ, who said, "Thou art Peter, and on this rock I will build my church," should not be verified. And their truth has been proved by the course of history, for in the apostolic see the Catholic religion has always been kept unsullied. The apostolic see has always kept the faith unsullied. I would submit to you, if the Antichrist is sitting in the see of Peter, it's not unsullied. Right? This would be entirely false. This formula that they had to sign. The faith of the first millennium. The very arguments we use to correct the Orthodox and tell them that they're wrong in their ecclesiology and their claims that Rome has defected from the faith. The very points that we use now sit in judgment of others in our own communion who are effectively saying the same thing that the Protestants and Orthodox were saying. And if I'm wrong, if I'm misunderstanding, and they're not saying, and it's substantially different, please help me understand, because I'm not seeing the difference. I'm seeing the same thing. All right. I'm concerned about this, though, because my thing is, why even remain in communion with Rome at this point if you really believe that the church is now engaging in a counter-magisterium, and that Rome is going to lose the faith, and somehow the church is going to be indefectible, but the seat of the Antichrist is going to be basically identified with the see of Peter. He says it will be the sect that occupies the see of most blessed Peter, of which today we see propagating the anti-gospel of the New World Order. How does that fit with the relatio? That doesn't mean that everything the Pope does is good. No. But again, I think we've gone beyond criticizing the papacy and saying the Pope is doing some bad things here and there. Now we're starting to say it's now a sea of air and pestilence, effectively. But again, help me to understand alternative views and see how maybe this could be compatible with Catholic ecclesiology. How are we still able to respond to the Orthodox and the Protestants in light of these claims? I don't know what's going on, y'all. It's pretty crazy. Well, not long ago, Taylor Marshall was calling the Second Vatican Council heretical. I just saw Father Ripperger say that Vatican II taught branch theory, which is a heresy. So he's also accusing it of heresy. Now you have Vigano basically saying that the Antichrist is going to sit in the see of Most Blessed Peter. Seemingly. That's not what he says. He sure needs to clarify this, because that seems to be the interpretation. It's frustrating. And I saw something by Peter Kwasniewski earlier in a public post where he says that the Pope is a formal heretic. What's going on, y'all? People have lost their mind. What's going on? Traditionalists are becoming more and more radicalized and reactionary, and that's sad, because we should be the voice of reason right now in the church. And it seems that we're becoming as crazy as the liberals. And that's what's disturbing. Right now is a perfect opportunity for us to be a voice of reason and balance and nuance, not making excuses for sin and when our shepherds fail us, but also not going too far in undermining our very reason for being Catholics. Thank you for the super chat. If they don't make any contrary rulings, it could work. I think sitting is just sitting. I don't get it. I don't see it. Help me see it, though. Help me see it. Yeah, we're going to review Father Ripperger's comments on the Second Vatican Council on branch theory, but I was very disheartened by that, because I've been very blessed by him in the past. I've sent people to him for exorcisms before. I have gone to him for spiritual direction before. I have appreciated and listened to many of his materials and read his books. Like I said, I've sent people to him for exorcisms. And that's not to say that he's a bad guy or anything. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I'm concerned about what he said about the Second Vatican Council. That's all. Maybe he can clarify it, but it just seems troubling to accuse the Second Vatican Council of a heresy. And he effectively does that when he says it teaches branch theory. Branch theory is a heresy. Branch theory is against Catholic ecclesiology, as he notes. We'll watch the video tomorrow. But it was very disturbing. I didn't expect that. I've seen him, say before that, okay, there was some ambiguity and things like that in Vatican II. Okay, fine, I get that. But to go that far, and then Peter K. to say the Pope is a formal heretic, it's going too far. I could see somebody saying, you know what, I suspect that Pope Francis is a formal heretic. I could see somebody saying that. I could see that. I might even agree, right? But that's different than actually saying he is a formal heretic. Not the same thing. You can suspect somebody, and that's one thing, and actually saying they're a formal heretic is another. Making the actual judgment that they are a formal heretic, that's something else. And that's a very dangerous position to be in as a Catholic. In theory, it's possible a pope could be a formal heretic, not teaching those things in his magisterium, but it's possible he personally could be, right? And he's going to remain the pope until it has been declared deposed by God. As you can watch my lecture against Sedevacantism. I talk about the 5 different theories there, and I go over especially Cayetan and Bellarmine's views on this issue, right? And we can talk about that. But to actually make a determination on Pope Francis to say he is a formal heretic, you've gone a step too far. You've gone a step beyond the church itself, and we need to let the church make those determinations, not us making them privately. That's why I say when I could see somebody saying I suspect them, right? I think that's legitimate. So I don't know what's going on. It just seems like everybody's losing their mind. I know these times are crazy. I know they're troubling, but let's not cause additional problems. Now, again, if I've misunderstood anybody, misrepresented anybody, I apologize. I'm not trying to. Sure do want to represent people accurately. I've never wanted to misrepresent a person. That would be uncharitable and dishonest. But I'm searching for ways to understand some of these things that I'm hearing in a orthodox light, and I'm not seeing it. So, somebody's asking me, what about the Virgin Mary appearing in La Salette and saying something similar? Well, you didn't see the beginning of the video. Go watch the beginning of the video. The problem with using dogma to refute the R&R set of position is that the same dogma is being denied every day in the Vatican. I would question that, right? First of all, I'd question that. But let's say, you have a pope who's denying a dogma. Where is he actually doing this? I want to see this in his official capacity as a pope, right? I have seen some things where it appears he has privately said some things. I get that. But where has he been teaching something that's a denial of a dogma, right? That would be something I need to see. Because that would be very problematic for our claims when it comes to the papal magisterium. I'm open to hearing it, but I have not seen it. Not something that is an actual denial of a dogma. No. But there are things out there that the Pope has said in his magisterium that could be confused in that sense, but they generally are because of, people misreading things or confusing even what dogma is, right? So, have I done a video on La Salette, Cosmic Catholic? No, not specifically, but, we talked about it for about 10 minutes there, so maybe we can do some more. Amoris Laetitia. Very technically speaking, even though that was the one that scandalized me, Amoris Laetitia was the document that scandalized me and ended up leading me to go to Eastern Orthodoxy. Amor Laetitia, very technically speaking, you look at the document, there's some things in there that no, it wouldn't be denying any dogmas. And then we would also have to discuss Trent, because Trent and its dogmatic teachings here on the indissolubility of marriage specifically were not intended to apply to the Eastern Orthodox understanding of economia, as I've already noted before, as the acts of Trent itself note. So you showing that Amor Laetitia is against a dogma, your work is cut out for you. It's not as easy as you think. You now need to show, was it session 7 of Trent? You now need to show that the canon there in session 7 is excluding economia. Including economy, I should say, which good luck with that one. And that somehow condemns what's being said in Amor Laetitia. And then we can also talk about the interpretation that is given to Amor Laetitia that he approved later on, right? But again, your work is cut out for you. But if you do that, you are aware at that point that it's going to be very hard for you to still remain Catholic at that point, because you're now actually showing that the magisterium, the teaching authority itself, is teaching things contrary to dogma. And when you really carry that out to its logical conclusion, I'm not sure how you remain Catholic at that point. So I would challenge some of those presuppositions that you have in your comment there. All right, we got Jimmy Aiken coming on in 7 minutes, so let me go ahead and meet him backstage and greet him. And I'll see y'all in about 7 minutes. But of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, share this on your social media. Also check us out, patreon.com/reason and theology, if you want to support us and get access to extra content and all that good stuff. All right, see y'all in just a few minutes with Jimmy Aiken coming up next.